Grade 9. Good morning, grade 9. Good morning, sir, at the back. Good morning, sir. Before you sit down, please put the chairs in that sort of oval shape where you guys look at each other. Alright, so today we'll be looking at, guys, you're taking too long to get your textbooks out. Today we'll be looking at the we're looking at the year 1948, the National Party and Apartheid. So just to recap, before your exams, we looked at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights after World War II. So which organization was responsible for putting together the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? The UN, alright. And what was the UN called before it was called the UN? Okay, we'll pass that one. Yes?
Isn't like the UNO?
Yes. Which stood for?
United Nations Organization.
Sure. And then, why did the UN decide to put together the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Like, what made them do it? Remember, this is after World War II. All these countries come together and they decide, no, we need to have a Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Why did they think, why was it so important for them to come together and create this declaration? What happened that formed them coming together and saying, wait, let's discuss the basic human rights that all humans should have in the world? What happened? They wanted to stop fights. Too many people died.
They wanted to.
Yes?
Want to show
How human beings should behave. And? You said more, I didn't hear the rest of what you said. Okay?
They wanted to stop fights and stuff like this.
Sure. Right, so they just wanted to find a way to regulate the manner in which wars and conflicts among countries are handled, right? So, okay, fine, we're not always going to agree as human beings, but let's at least have the basics of how we should treat one another, right? Okay, cool. Then we'll look at the definition of racism. What did we speak about when we spoke about racism? What areas did we cover? You whispering. Guys, Mr. Madiba is not going to bite anyone. Let's act like he's not here. Let's just be, ourselves. Right? So, when we spoke about the definition of racism, what did we cover? Tiffany, you're much louder than that, yes?
Our race is not actually like a thing.
It's not really a thing because
It's pseudoscience.
It's pseudoscience.
It's a social construct.
It's a social wow, guys. Yes, and What else did we learn? What did we learn about geography and history?
All came from Africa and all moved apart.
Sure. What else did we learn?
The colors are different.
Because
Adaptation.
of climate,
Yeah.
because of adaptation. Sure, right. So you guys have a rough idea of what we covered. So what are we looking at today? We looked at the National Party and apartheid. What was the National Party? How they inherited the Native Land Act from the Union of South Africa. How they created more extreme acts or laws that maintain separate living. In this section, we will highlight the Group Areas Act. So that's the one thing that we'll focus on towards the end of this section. So, racial segregation before apartheid. We had the Native Land Act of 1913. So that was before you had the apartheid regime. That's before you had the National Party in power. So the Parliament of South Africa aimed at regulating the acquisition of land. Regulations were not in favor of black people or non-whites. Whites were not allowed to buy land from natives and vice versa, so natives could also not buy land from whites. The native areas were initially 10% of the entire land mass of the Union, which was later expanded to 13%. So out of 100%, guys, how much is 13% of land to give to a majority population?
13%.
Yeah, that's like nothing. And this is the land that's given to the majority of the people living on the land. Let's watch a quick clip on the Native Land Act. I think the screen looks very light, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm gonna try something here. I don't know if I'm gonna be successful. And we can close the door. Who wants to close the door?
Oh, the replacement lines. I didn't notice that.
Which ones?
These ones. Oh.
I don't think the speaker's on.
Thanks, Vicky.
Mr. Otto stepped out. Sorry, give me 1 second. Technology is like not on my side right now. Oh, there we go.
So at the end,
South Africa's Native Land Act of 1913. After the Anglo-Boer War of 1899 to 1902, most of South Africa was controlled by Britain. During this time, there were huge labor shortages, so the British passed laws to force African farmers off their land in order to become migrant laborers. Black citizens had no political rights, and most of the wealth of the country was controlled by white citizens. At the time, 80% of the population was black, but highly paid jobs were reserved for whites only. In 1913, the government passed the Native Land Act, which allocated 13% of the land to blacks, even though they made 80% of the population. Africans were forced to leave white-owned land and move to reserves, which were small, dry, and not adequate for agriculture. More men were forced to seek employment in the mines and white-owned farms or industries in order to pay taxes. The 1913 Native Land Act forced many Africans to work for white farmers, and white-owned landowners were empowered to confiscate cattle that belonged to Africans. Some Africans resisted working in mines and industries and became sharecroppers who worked on farms owned by poor whites and paid rent to them. Africans preferred to be sharecroppers than workers on white-owned commercial farms. Sharecropping, however, reduced the labor force available for commercial farmers, so the government passed a law in 1936 that forced sharecroppers to become laborers on commercial farms. The new law required blacks living on white farms to work for the white farmer at least 6 months every year. So many Africans abandoned sharecropping and moved to the reserves. According to Saul Plage, a black leader and first secretary of the African National Congress, ANC, before 1913, they had raised an average 800 bags of grain in each season, which gave a steady income of about 300 pounds per year after the farmer had taken his share. The native provides his own seed, his own cattle, his own labor, and after bagging his grain, he calls in the landlord to receive his share, which is 50% of the entire crop. All this had gone well till the previous week when the landowner came to the native tenants with the story that a new law had been passed under which, as the peasant said, all my oxen and my cows must belong to him, and my family to work for 4 pounds a month, failing which he gave me 4 days to leave his farm.
So guys, why is land so important? Have you guys heard of the new discussion around land in South Africa? Yes, no?
Look at how an entire country was stolen and the legacy that has left for you.
Yes, no? Have we heard of people speaking about land and how land must be given back to the people? Yes, no? Yes.
Wasn't there a thing of like Julius Malema, like if he said that if he becomes in power, like get into power, then
Someone speaking.